You can't take it with you when you're gone, so how do you make the most of it while you are here? It's time for Your Money Matters with Sam and Dieter from Harness Financial.
Okay, Sam and Dieter are in the Wellington studio, are they? I can't see you. You can probably see me, though. Is that right? Hello.
One of us can see you, Michael.
Oh, only one of us can. Oh, well, see, the other one is an extraordinary lucky person, can I just say?
You're a pretty good-looking guy, let's be honest.
That's the South Island part of me, you see, the rugged South Island personality as well. Sam and Dieter are from Harvest Financial. Listen, I've got some questions to ask you, as I usually would, but I was interested in your website. How did you start as Harness Financial? What were the origins of the company for which you now front?
Oh, it's a good question. We've been asked that for quite some time. We are two directors of Harness Financial. I, Sam, direct the insurance advice side of the business, and Dieter directs the investment side of the business. Our business is about 10 years old now, but initially it just started as an insurance advice firm, and then I met Dieter having been searching for a investment advisor, a financial planner to refer clients to, being passionate about the whole picture, not just insurance advice. And we started referring a lot of work to each other and realised that we were aligned on values and client care focus. And we just realised it was right to come together and join forces. And at that point, we rebranded from our two respective businesses, Reece Thomas Financial and Savvy Wealth, to Harness Financial.
Right.
And,
so you came from an insurance background initially.
My background's insurance, but Dieter's background's investments. Yeah.
But I listen, just quietly, it's fascinating the number of insurance folk who have gone into financial policy advice and investment as well. Are there any insurance agents left at all that aren't offering financial services?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that most insurance advisors focus on insurance only, and that's to the detriment of the New Zealand public, I believe, because you meet with an insurance advisor who calls themselves a financial advisor, and while they technically are a financial advisor, you can walk away with insurance advice only, and feel like you're sorted potentially when perhaps you're not. One of the things that I like to say to my clients, Michael, is, hey, I want you to be able to cancel a lot of these insurance policies we've put in place in 15 years or 20 years, depending on the horizon, but that all comes down to whether or not you've got the plan in place to retire.
Yes, because you are a retirement advice centre as well.
That's right.
So the questions that I wanted to ask you today, and that we are going to talk about, are rental properties. How many New Zealanders love to buy a second house, don't they, as their primary investment over their primary investment, which is their own home?
Yeah, I think it's the tried and tested way to build up an equity base over time. One of the great things about property and rental properties is you can leverage the equity in your home. So you can get the bank to actually give you the money to buy it.
Yeah.
And you get tenants to help pay off that mortgage over time. So it is a very effective way to get a higher amount of equity over a short amount of time. So it has got a place and it has got a value.
The changes that have happened in the last 12 months to do with rental investment properties, have they made it easier, harder? No difference?
I think it's made it harder in the short term previously with the tax changes, but essentially if you take a step back and go, why did you buy it in the first place? It's like the time when everyone went out and got a family trust. If you don't have the bigger picture of why you're actually trying to do it and you're just reacting to short-term noise, you're not making decisions for the right reasons. So you can ride out the small short-term issues if you've got a bigger picture and a longer time horizon of what you're looking forward to.
You've pointed out in the notes you've provided for me that risk and return are correlated. Obviously they are. but the residential property market has underperformed against equity markets over the long term and carries higher risk. That seems counterintuitive to me, but I'm not going to disagree with you. I think most New Zealanders think that that property is, the stable investment and that has outperformed everything else. You're saying no. In actual fact, equity markets and the share market has. Is that right?
That's correct. So over the long term, probably over 50 years, the New Zealand residential property market has returned about 8.8% per annum, where the New Zealand equity market's done around 12.5% per annum.
Wow.
But the issue, and I think this is where the perceived risk versus actual risk are quite different. So equities and diversified funds will move up and down, but your diversification rate is really, really high. Property, you don't see it. You don't have a board outside the front of the house with a number changing every day, but it is changing.
Yeah.
But it's incredibly localized to a rather small place in the global scheme of things. It's a little bit shaky from time to time.
Yeah, and I guess it depends where you are too, doesn't it? I was just thinking of all those properties in Wellington at the moment. They won't be appreciating the same as, Queenstown.
That's right. And it's funny how you mentioned the word appreciate, because that's one of the big issues, I think. The Kiwis are focused on whether or not their property will appreciate. They're focused on capital gains. We just talked about risk and how you can, carry a bunch of risk by having all of your wealth tied up in property. But it's not just risk, it's also stress associated with all of the requirements to look after rental properties. Rates, insurance, tenants can be hard work.
Yeah.
And sometimes people jump into property investment without appreciating the stress that they might be under having to look after these properties. Yeah, they might get capital gains, but sometimes those gains aren't actually worth it.
Yeah, I think the other part of the calculation, if you try to work out net real return, you need to subtract the operational costs of owning it. So you can't just go, I bought it for 500,000, 10 years ago, and it's worth 800,000 now. Your gain hasn't been 300,000. It's been 300,000 less rates, less insurance, less maintenance.
Yeah.
So, do a proper calculation, and there are opportunities, but don't ignore the operational costs.
No, and so you're suggesting that diversification versus New Zealand property market is the better way to go. What are you saying, that I should have property and equity investments? I'd have to have a bit of money for that.
Good moment for an advice disclaimer, eh?
Yes.
So just a disclaimer here to say that this is general advice and general chat. You should, if you're listening today, seek personalised advice from a registered financial advisor before making any decisions. So, Dieter?
So
the
first question you really got to answer is, at what stage do you stop or plan to stop working, and what is the passive income that you need? Because until you have those two sort of at least an idea around them, you can't answer the question around property and equities or split thereon. So once we've got those first 2 points tied down to a degree, we can then assess, is property, is a combination, what is the right method in the combination of those things? But you need to know the destination of the journey before we can decide on the right vehicle or combination of vehicles.
So everybody will be making a different journey.
That's right. Well, Michael, we sit down with people in their 30s who are trying to get ahead and grow their wealth. And we also sit down with people in their 60s who might have a number of rentals. In fact, you've had a number of clients recently, Dieter, who have contacted you, some platform listeners that have had decent-sized portfolios, and they're asking the question, hey, what should I do now? You've actually run some really interesting numbers lately on those scenarios, haven't you, Dieter?
I have. I sat down with a client who has 10 investment properties. The net equities around about 6.5 million if he sold it all and paid off the debt. And we worked out his income requirement. It was 200,000 a year. So, that's around 3% of the value of that whole portfolio if it was invested, which he would never ever deplete. So he could remove all the stress of ownership, all the risk of local conditions, and have a stress-free income without running out of money. So it's all about horses for courses, but step back and always think of why you did what you did in the first place. Don't just keep doing what you're doing because you've always done it.
Okay. So, of course, everybody's investment situation will be different depending upon where they are in their life. One of the things is access to housing to start with. I'm actually thinking of a generation at the moment, particularly, say, under the age of 35, who are struggling to own their own home, and the bank of mum and dad coming in to help. Do you give advice around that as well?
We do. So we also work with a number of really, really good mortgage advisors. So you need to be very careful. Obviously, the Brightline test change, and also the exclusion of the fact that any inter sort of family transfer and things, I think don't trigger that Brightline. So first of all, you've got to secure the parents' retirement goals. Make sure that is secure. Then you can have the conversation about how do we use equity to help the kids. But also then the kids need to get advice. So a lot of people have a defeatist attitude. They just go, we'll never afford it. And then you get these cases where, the people who put their heads down, looked at ways around it, joined with other friends, bought property, used border income, sacrificed the sort of day-to-day benefits of enjoying life and actually put money towards those goals. So there's always ways of doing things. But I think the mindset is actually the biggest issue. In the days when interest rates are 21%, people still manage to get through. But we've got to take ownership of our future in that regard and work out a plan to get it done. Even if it takes 2-3 years, it can be done.
What's the highest interest rate you've seen over the years, Michael?
Yeah, it would be that. I mean, there were second mortgages, I think, in the late 80s, about 21%. But the more common one was probably about 13-14%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you compare it to now and you think, well, 5%, what are you moaning about? But, people are.
Yeah. Yeah, but the size of their loans a lot bigger, so those changes
Yes, I guess that's right too.
That also has a practical factor.
Yeah, nobody would have thought of borrowing $500,000 for a home. That would have been considered ridiculous.
Something really interesting I've noticed over the years is that virtually no one is buying their first home without their KiwiSaver as a deposit. And what that says to me is that that they're only able to have bought this house really because of forced discipline. And so it is possible to nominate a sense of discipline outside KiwiSaver and save, but most people don't do that. They have just passively been putting money away into KiwiSaver, and then, I've got a deposit for a house now.
Yeah, and I think the other part of it, sorry, Michael, just to sort of cap on that one is, when you bought your first home back then, you probably wouldn't have had a home that passed the healthy home standard.
Well, there wasn't a healthy home standard.
Exactly. So we sort of expect a much higher standard from day one at the moment.
Yeah.
We used to be happy with a car that had no aircon, no electric windows, but we automatically start at a higher point now because our expectations are a lot higher.
Well, and sometimes excessively so, it has to be said. Yes, like new furniture instead of second-hand and things like that. Listen, the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about was that equity issue. New Zealanders, it became very popular in the late 80s, investment sort of clubs, groups of friends getting together. Is there still that concept in the community of equity investment, that people do look at the share market and the way that you do, long-term returns and things like that? Are they still playing those sorts of investment games? Well, not so much games, because there are gains to be had from it. Is it still as popular as it was in the late 80s?
That's a good question. From what I've seen in my career, there's still a hangover of, I suppose, aversion and people being frightened of investments because of how a lot of people in the 80s were in those clubs investing in silly things without good advice, and a lot of people lost a lot of money.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of Kiwis still don't quite understand what the difference between those, blue chip investments were and the sort of investments that we recommend, Dieter.
Yeah, I think that the investment landscape has changed dramatically. So in those days, even in South Africa, you dealt with direct stocks. You had a portfolio of sort of 10, 15, 20 stocks. So low diversification, probably a lot of local only companies in there. So essentially, it's more on the side of speculating than investing.
Gambling, really.
Today, you can have a managed fund with 10,700 underlying companies spread across the entire globe.
10,700.
You literally, you can't ankle tap a millipede for rugby analogy. So your risk has actually gone down without actually sacrificing a lot of the upside. And yes, you'll have volatility. You'll have times when markets go up and down. But if you stay in your seat and you keep your discipline through those times, you're banking on the fact that capital markets globally will always grow over time, because even the elite need to put money somewhere. So, you're sort of banking on that.
There's so much research now as to the difference between passive and active investment as well. And do you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's sort of three styles of investments, generally speaking. You got your passive, which only came through not that long ago, where you run on the average of all the companies, own all the companies, and then the index, and you move up and down with that index. So it's very low sort of thought process. You just literally let an algorithm react to what happens in the market. You have the very active style, so you're literally looking through the companies, picking your active ones that you think will outperform. And you might miss out on ones that aren't in there. So there's a risk to both sides, but less on the passive side. But then you have a different approach, which is a hybrid of the two. So all three have their place, and whatever you do needs to be a really good management in all three of those spaces. But your risk decreases slightly the more companies you hold. So a lot of the active managers today have very large portfolios, which reduces some of that diversification risk. But they all have a place. Pure passive has issues. It sort of ends up reacting to when the index rebalances. So you end up buying roses on Valentine's Day and selling roses the next day. So your buying and buying out can be a lot more expensive. But again, you've got to. Why do you have it? What is the purpose? What's it got to do for you and your family? That needs to be clear.
Now, how do I get in contact with you guys to make my own individual appointment? And does it matter where I am in the country to do so?
No, thank you to COVID. We've become quite digitally acclimatized. So you can go to our website, www.harnessfinancial.co.nz, or call me directly, 021 0268 7955.
Yeah.
And I can go to your website as well too, can I?
Yep. You can there's a chat thing there which comes up on my phone. There's a form you can submit that comes through. There's so many ways now that it's become very, very easy.
You can even book a call directly in your calendar, can't you? Yeah.
You can own my calendar.
Well, there you go. So that's Harness Financial. You can book a call, contact. You've got those numbers again. Can you just give us those free calling number again, please?
021 0268 7955.
Okay.
In a South African accent.
Yes, well, there you go. Which reminds me, the All Blacks are playing England this Saturday. Who's South Africa playing, Theatre?
We're playing Scotland.
So that's an easy one.
Yeah,
actually, you're not playing very good teams, actually. I was surprised. You're the number one team in the world, but I think you're playing Scotland, Wales and Italy or something, aren't you?
Scotland, Wales and England.
You are playing England, who aren't very good, actually. If the All Blacks can't beat them, there'll be something wrong, but then there could be something wrong. Listen, thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you, and we'll make sure that we put up those details for the rest of the show today.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Have a great day. Have a great week. There you go, Harness Financial. You can go to the website as well, just harnessfinancial.co.nz. Book a call, contact, and there you go.
Your Money Matters with Sam and Dieter from Harness Financial. To make the most out of your money, visit harnessfinancial.co.nz.